Hello Destinites, and welcome to a discussion of the December update to class balance, specifically for the Titan. We're going to see, most importantly, some major debuffs coming to the Sunbreaker because it was totally broken. But what I'm really interested in as well is that they're addressing each of the different subclasses. The Archetype's really going to come into its own, where it was underpowered before, and I enjoyed playing it even when it was underpowered. It's going to see some significant buffs, and that's going to make it far more playable, and I don't think it will bring it out of the realm of that you still need to be a skilled player to use it, but you don't need to be MLG level before you start to see a return on your investment in playing it. So let's talk from the start at the basic goals, we'll say. The goals that they have for each of the classes. And you can see a bit of humor out of Bungie right here at the start to talk about the Solar Titan. They say basic goal is give a glimmer of hope to beating the Solar Titan. So that's how OP they were before, where it was just like, are you kidding me? What are we even going to... Oh, forget it. You know, I was giving advice to people before. I was like, here's my technical advice for you. If you hear somebody activate the hammer, run from the hammer. Don't try and fight it. Okay, so... yeah, and to go along with that, they're saying bring down the kill-death ratio to an average of 1.0, which is good. That means it's going to reward skill-based play. You're going to see somebody go above 1.0 if they're really good, below it if they're not that good, and it's not just everybody, because of the class, manages to get 3.0 kill-death ratios. They're also going to try and encourage alternative specs with the changes they've made, which means that this kind of like homing hammer that heals you and you can throw it way too many times is going to be balanced properly, and we're going to see more variety, which is the spice of life. So that's good that they're doing that. The Arc Titan, like I said, basic when I say that they're trying to bring it into its own. They want to bring up the kill death ratio to compete with the other classes, and when the striker is a striker, that means he hits you in the face. They're going to try and reinforce the hard charging mode, which is great because that's the whole spiritual essence of being a striker, and it was underpowered before. Last but not least, we have the Void Titan, which is going to see the least changes of all, and they just say they want to double down on the instant base ready for anything combat support role. So basically make its most fundamental attributes a little bit stronger, fundamental talents a little bit stronger. So I will discuss the Sunbreaker first, and I will break it into melee, super, and passive. We can talk about all the differences there. The melee. So the Titan melee, although actually I should say this, across every single one, across Solar Titan, Arc Titan, and Void Titan, this initial buff has been added to all of them, so I'll just say it in passing for each one as we go by. They've extended the Titan melee range by 12.5%. which is significant when you consider like the Warlock buff that you get where you extend your range to melee, and it's huge when you get this extra, and 12.5% isn't small. So I think that that's a really good buff, and it makes a Titan more Titan-y because they're supposed to run up and punch you in the face, and that's what they're going to be better at now. The next thing they've got, now we move into a big list of debuffs now. The Sunstrike is going to have its dot time decreased, damage over time decreased, from 6.5 seconds to 5.5 seconds, which brings it out of the realms of insane into the realms of still somewhat crazy, because it was amazing before to watch you tag somebody with this melee strike and then way later see them die off screen or whatever when they ran away from you, or vice versa. You'd be like, when is this dot ever going to end? So that's really good. I think that needed that, and it's not huge, but like I say, it's just enough. Then we move along to the super. When you activated the Hammer of Soul, or Skill Hammer as I affectionately call it, you had way too much damage resistance and you became the Terminator. So they're going to reduce that. Damage resistance during the super is down now, and it's more reasonable to kill them, and it'll also mean that, well, the Soul Hammer is a ranged ability, you'll have to use it more like that, because you could be so resistant before that you'd run in with a ranged ability and wipe people out and just stand in the middle of them. They're also going to slow the hammer travel speed by a negative 1.32%. So no more lightning hammers, folks. No more lightning hammers. It's not a hunter's, night bow or whatever the hell. So it shouldn't be shooting that fast, I don't think. Kind of the spirit of that was all off. Okay, now those are the two details for the super. Now we can move along into passives. Forge Master. Forge Master is the passive ability that gives you bigger hammers and more hammers and bigger explosions. The detonation radius multiplier has been reduced by nearly a quarter. What this means is if that you're not at the epicenter, the center of a splash damage attack from one of these hammers, you're not going to get, you know, like your little toe clipped by the hammer and take full damage from it, which is what it seemed like before. You could like blindly throw one of these things and it would like just barely touch someone and you would get full damage on them. So that's not going to be the case anymore. Hallelujah. As much as I enjoyed using it, it was just too frustrating to see how this is abused when you're on the receiving end. So Flame Seeker. Flame Seeker is the passive ability you can choose that will make the hammers into homing missiles. This has been debuffed by a quarter, negative 25%. Again, it's that sort of spiritual, you know, like the idea of what this is supposed to be, and you're not a hunter. You're not like some deadly accurate hunter shooting a bow, and so why these hammers were, you know, having that kind of accuracy before was ridiculous, let alone beyond the philosophy of it. It was just OP. So that's gone. So Flame Seeker is also going to have removed from it a +1 agility and +1 recovery or plus recovery stat bonuses from it as well. Just, you know, debuff, debuff, debuff. They're serious about this. They're not pulling punches. The next one, this really needed this because you could all but become invincible. Cauterize. Cauterize is the passive ability when you hit someone with a hammer, you start to heal. Before, it had no cooldown, and so if you walked into a room of guys and you started hucking hammers, you could just stay permanently healing. What they've done to fix this is add a 3-second cooldown. So it's still really potent. You hit somebody after you're taking damage while you're throwing the hammer, you'll heal, but you can't just chain one into the other. All right, then we have Fleet Fire. Here they got a couple little buffs for you, you know, not just to totally rain on the Sunbreaker's parade. Fleet Fire, which is a bonus to agility and reload, is going to get +1 to agility. Firekeeper, another passive ability which gives overshield when standing in the sunspot, is going to get an additional +1 to recovery. So that's pretty cool. The last thing that we have is a buff that's again across all the different classes, and it's for Catapult Lift. It's for one of your jumps. You're going to get a faster initial velocity of +5%. Who doesn't like faster initial velocity? All right, now we come to the subclass that I love so much, and I can't wait to play with all these changes that they've made. So the first thing I already talked about, they have +12.5% melee range. You knew that already. Storm Fist. So the like base melee attack that you do with this is going to get an increase in damage of nearly 20%, 18.2%. Awesome. I think that's wicked. So Overload, that's the next one. Overload can reset your melee ability. It procs when you, or activates when you do a melee. Overload provides a 50% melee recharge in addition to the possible reset. So before, where it was like, oh, it might happen or it might not, that's still the case, but you're also going to get this 50% recharge. So if it doesn't activate, you still get a bonus from it. Good call. Because when you looked at that ability before, you're kind of like, I just don't want to flip that coin, where it's like this could potentially be completely useless. The next one we have is Discharge, which turns your Storm Fist into an AoE. That's going to get an additional 7.69% damage. Nice. I like that. Another detail they have here as well is that they're going to change the area of effect from Storm Fist to spherical, where I thought that's what it was before, but I guess maybe it was like in a front-facing cone before. So that's good that they would change that. Following that, we have a change to Amplify, which is Amplify is the ability that Storm Fist kills charge your super. They increase the super energy bonus from this plus 30%. That's a big gain for a melee synergy if you're looking for that. That's really cool. So that's all the melee changes, and that's a lot, right? Like we got, you look at like the damage increase there. You've got over a quarter of damage increase across these things. You got that 50% recharge. It's fantastic. I love it. Okay, we move into passives now. Headstrong. Headstrong was the ability where sprinting increases the leap distance of your super / Fist of Havoc. Headstrong also provides faster sprint. That's cool, right? Like now you're not just like getting a greater leap distance. As you go into that leap, you're going to be faster doing it. Awesome, cool. This guy's like this hard-hitting, sprinting, you know, rugby player kind of deal. Transfusion is another ability that they've changed. Transfusion is the ability that melee kills trigger health regeneration. They're going to improve the cooldown on this from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. That's a big jump. Count that out. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. That's a pretty big deal. That's going to be a big change. Unstoppable. You're harder to kill when you're using your super. Now provides +2 armor as opposed to +1. I was never a big fan of this one before, but you know, that addition to the armor now, like again, these things are going to make it a lot more interesting to kind of play around with the different options that we have. Also, Unstoppable increased damage resistance by 25%. That's a quarter. That's huge. Now, Juggernaut. Juggernaut is, that's basically when you're running along, you create a bubble for yourself. This always felt a little bit underpowered. Like I say, with all these things for this class, they're going to improve the shield health by 14.3%. Awesome. And then they've affected another fundamental way in which this works is that now Juggernaut, when you're using it, you're sprinting along, you've made your bubble. Now it works when you're airborne. Hallelujah. That's awesome. That's so practical. Why would it, not work in the air or whatever? And then we come to the last thing I said that would be across all of them, which is the catapult lift, faster 5% initial velocity. I won't repeat that now. It's in your head. Remember that. The jump has changed. So, the last but not least, although least of all changed, is the defender. Don't need to talk about the melee. You know that that's extended. Super. The Ward of Dawn, now, this is like quite a significant buff. Like this single thing that they're changing. Like I said, the fundamentals. It's going to recharge grenade and melee abilities on the supercast. So that's awesome. You use this and then boom, you are ready. You are really ready. And then the movement, as well as I say, has been changed. So there's some serious changes. We're talking like that was a long list, right? And they're going to fundamentally change how we see each of these played. I really like the Sunbreaker. I think I'm still going to enjoy the Sunbreaker. And there is a point that comes, offering my own opinion now, when something is so OP, it becomes unsatisfying. We know this whenever we become so good at something that it becomes boring. And the Sunbreaker did kind of get boring because it was so easy to use, where now when you land those shots, it's going to be that much more satisfying. And on the other end of things, if the striker is now super OP, well, at least it's the beginning of that, and we won't be bored with it for at least a little bit of time. All right, so those are my thoughts on the class changes that have occurred and the breakdown for you. I hope you found it useful. Please do like, subscribe, add a comment. What do you think? Was that like too much of a debuff for the Sunbreaker? Are you in tears over this change? Are you excited about the Sunbreaker changes? Let's chat about this. I want your thoughts, your feelings. Yeah, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. I believe I'll be discussing, I think, the Sparrow League racing, because there's a few details in there, as much fun as it is, that are pissing me off. All right, that's the Great Owl signing off for now. Peace.